Thank you all. Thank you, Mike. You got the first name right. That was good. It's a pleasure and an honor to share the stage with Manuela. For those who haven't read her bio, Manuela is the head of AI research at JP Morgan. Look at my notes here. And she is also a professor emeritus at Carnegie Mellon University, focusing on computer science. I know a lot of people find it a struggle to show up Tuesday morning, the day after the big parties at BAFT, so I appreciate those who are here. I was up studying last night. I was up at 6 this morning, and my day started with a call to my wife at 6:30, who said, "Hey, don't be nervous. Just remember, she's a lot more intelligent than you are." I'm not sure how that's going to help me, but we'll get started. As I mentioned, what I know about AI, I learned from Manuela speaking at our events. But why don't we start at the beginning, Manuela? Give us a little background on what AI is. I think we use a lot of the AI terms interchangeably: machine learning, natural language processing, large language models. But give us a little background on AI.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for having me, Mike. AI stands for artificial intelligence, as we know, and it's a field that's a young field. So it's starting around like in the 50s, 40s, but the goal is gigantic. So the goal of the field of AI is to have computers, non-DNA things, so artificial devices, to exhibit the same characteristics of human intelligence. And human intelligence is thought to be the coordination of perception, which is our ability to process all the data that comes from our sensors, all sorts of like cognition, which is our ability to think, to plan, to evaluate, to decide on which action to take. And actually, we act. So we have perception, cognition, and action in which we actually execute the actions. So AI has that goal of really trying to bring these three capabilities together in a computer. So we understand for a long time, the way that we have included or used AI in our businesses has been more the perception side, looking at the data, being able to visualize the data and offer those visualizations, those understanding, those predictions, those classifications to humans who actually then make decisions through beautiful blackboards, all sorts of like tableaus and all sorts of visualizations, to really then acting. Also, basically a lot of like human acting. So AI is that kind of like science and engineering of getting the three things done. I'll mention later about like the difference of now the Gen AI, the natural language, but I just want you to understand that machine learning is one aspect of these kind of perception, cognition, and action, which focus a lot on being able to handle data and extracting patterns from data and feed data into machines that are able then to understand and predict eventually patterns that the data reveals. But AI goes beyond just machine learning, because think just as an example, Waze. Do you all use Waze? I'm sure you use all Google Maps or something. Waze does not do any machine learning. It computes the shortest route, uses data that comes from traffic, but the computation of the actual shortest path is an AI algorithm that searches what's the best move to tell us to go. So that's an example. Playing chess. You might learn how to evaluate this board, but you still have to select a move. So that move selection is AI beyond just the machine learning. We might learn which moves are better, like evaluation. We learn that, but we still have to analyze all those values and choose an action. So see, AI includes machine learning, which is driving kind of like the skeleton of AI, but it's not the AI story altogether. Is that? I'll be happy to explain more if needed.
Perfect. So look, you touched a little bit on analyzing the data and recognizing patterns, reading patterns. How do you develop the use cases for this data?
Yeah, so I think that here is where the businesses get very involved. at JP Morgan or, in our industry, we kind of like challenge the business with their pain points or with their wishes or with their needs. So you have these three categories, which is like pain points, wishes, which are dreams, and needs, things that they really need to be done to continue. So the three things, usually challenge AI to bring those to the business. So examples are, for example, in our business, we have numbers, documents, and people. I mean, we don't do drones, we don't do food, we don't do anything. We just have numbers, documents, and people. And therefore, for example, within the documents, a lot of the needs of the use cases we handle have to do with processing annual reports, answering questions about specific policies, all sorts of like understanding these enormous amounts of language that come in documents that we have to process, and then understand it and actually run code that is able to check if these particular kind of like policies are being followed in specific transactions or interactions with clients or all sorts of like things that we can follow digitally. So use cases have come from the business, and literally challenge AI within these text processing, answering emails, supplying information for people who handle chatbots, and all sorts of like, services that we have to do as humans. And we can have AI bring information to consideration much more effectively than having people just search manually for all that information.
Perfect. And you just mentioned bringing the data into consideration. What is the role of the human in that? Once you have the data, once you see the patterns, what's the role of the human?
So it's a very good question. If I answer as a pure AI person, I would say the human will be gone. And in fact, I have to share with you that when I came in 2018 to this large financial institution, one way or another, I thought, oh my gosh, this is like trivial. Computers can do it, like prices and answering emails. And I thought it could all be done by AI, literally. And people kept looking at me and saying, really, like all the functions? But after all, I realized one thing that's very important, which is where I am now, is that these humans, these people, have tons of knowledge, which one way or another, it's not all digitally available necessary for the computer to go and find out how do you actually talk with this client, how do you make a decision, how do you underwrite something. I mean, the whole paradigm of knowledge is in people's heads. And also the empathy and the talking with clients and being able to follow people at the human level is also humans. So my understanding now is that what we need to understand, to try to converge to, is this unique human and AI interaction, in which AI hopefully helps humans in the things that are tedious or in the things that are actually require lots of trying to find information. And then the humans, first of all, also set up goals for AI, set up demands for AI, make up requests that AI itself does not come up with what is important, and the humans know. And then there is this kind of journey of these AI and these humans interacting through time. So the only thing that matters here, one way or another, is that we as humans cannot deny that this AI exists. And if you have not used ChatGPT ever, I really assign as homework number 1 that you do use ChatGPT. For anything, it doesn't matter whether it's like you want to decide between this refrigerator and the other. It will give you the pros and cons. If you want to know what does it mean, derivatives, or what is the impact of tariffs now, ask. And you might agree, might not agree, but it definitely brings some information to you that you didn't have before. And until you have that experience, you cannot pass homework number one, okay? So it's important to embrace that this exists, and you would be in awe what this provides. I want to add one more thing that you should appreciate, the little thing that, why is this called Chat GPT? Versus before, we had Google searches, we have Waze, we have Uber, we have Amazon. It's not called Chat Amazon, it's not called Chat Google, it's not called Chat Uber, nothing. The chat part is fundamental here in this Chat GPT, and all credit goes to OpenAI in these developments, because it enables you to ask clarifications. So it tells you something as a context, and you can say, oh, I don't understand what you mean by this, explain more. And once I was going to talk with treasurers, and on the way there, I thought, what can AI do for treasurers? And I asked ChatGPT, and ChatGPT came up with a lot of things. Some of them, most of them I knew kind of thing, but there was something that I was confused about. And I asked, explain number 10 as if I were 12 years old. And it was crispy clear. You know, it transformed this into very simple, and you can follow it. So what I'm saying is like this, that chat part is something you need to benefit from. Not just ask something, but if you don't understand, go further in detail, challenge this thing. Tell me in a different way. I don't understand, expand here. I don't know, I don't need to know this, I already know. The chat part, do you understand? So that's homework number 2. Not only chat GPT, but also the chat, use it to get to know better what this AI can provide to you. So now one final thing, at JP Morgan, we actually have something that is this ChatGPT, but it's like internal. We call it LLM suite. It's internal, all protected with the guardrails. So eventually we comply with not sharing data, not using the data inappropriately. So we cannot like just, I don't know, in your institutions, you cannot just put a document that's part of like our functions in the firm inside of ChatGPT public. We just can't. And so you have to be careful that the things you use ChatGPT public cannot be like your business kind of internal processes. So you have to separate your whatever you want to make public to this ChatGPT, because I tell you, they see everything that you ask versus what cannot be seen. And so we made a lot of progress creating this infrastructure that enables us all to benefit from this generative AI internally.
I was going to ask you about use cases for banks, but you mentioned the guardrails. Let's talk about that for a second. The guardrails that companies have put in place, and what regulatory guardrails do you see coming for AI usage?
So this is a very important question. So, you know, I don't know if you understand these, we all use this thing, human in the loop. Do you understand? People talk about humans in the loop, like saying like this, whatever ChatGPT tells you, whatever this generative AI does, whatever it gives you answers for, the human needs to check. And there was always this thing about it's the human's responsibility to really embrace what this Gen AI tells. However, you have to, we have all to understand one thing. So if you use, I don't know, if you use the most recent versions, like deep research and all the last versions, they actually tell you the source where the information comes from, so that eventually it minimizes the hallucinations that these Gen AI might have. So it gives you like the fact and the source, and the fact and the source. And however, the scale of what AI addresses, like huge documents, many consistent questions, may lead into having many source, statement source, and you might face an answer that has 100 or plus statement sources. And who is the human who is going to click on all these sources and verify that the statement is true? So the scale made this thing about humans checking quite unrealistic. I mean, I don't want to be the human in the loop, I guarantee to you. Because how can you check all those? So now becomes a problem of scale. You have all these statements, you have all the sources, and now I'm supposed to check all of these. So in terms of regulations, what we have to do, instead of like having the human check it all, and the human can check whatever at whatever level it is, we are trying to understand how can we do algorithms that check other algorithms, so that we have algorithms that loop it, those and clicks on all these sources, and some AI system checks if the AI system is telling the right thing or not. And then we might ask 3 or 4 different LLMs to see if they agree. So we cannot really, realistically rely on humans to check all of this. So we have to now start doing AI to check AI. And eventually, at some level, you are going to have the humans validating. But the validation of humans, in some sense, is also built in. If the humans do something, that's homework number 3, you need to randomly check something. Suppose you don't check everything this thing is telling you, but randomly means that the machine does not know when you are going to check. You are going to check something. That's very valuable, because if you randomly check something and it's right, you start building trust. And from time to time, you randomly check. And the more the thing is right, the more you are going to feel, I can trust this thing. It's like you, I don't know when you started using Waze, at least I did. I loved my maps. In Pittsburgh, I lived 30 plus years in Pittsburgh. And we had this box full of maps. We went to Paris, we bought the map. We went to Texas, we bought the map. We went to Italy, we bought a map. So we had all these maps. When came Waze, all these maps are there for nothing, literally. But at the beginning, because I was so fond of my maps, if we would like travel, I would take the map and verify if this Waze was giving me the right route. And I would open the map, and I'm like checking that this is right. Oh, no. Oh, well, that's right. Yeah, whatever. And constantly saying this Waze was right. And guess what? I never used the maps ever again. But you understand, you can check, and then you build this confidence, and you start trusting this AI. So regulations eventually will need to understand that AI is involved in the process, and they might only require more checks. Did you ask only one LLM? I'm sorry, it cannot go out to the client like that. Ask 10 LLMs, or ask a majority. Is this a majority of the answer? All the majority of the LLMs answer like this? Okay, I accept. So I don't know. I've never worked in regulation, but I think that the regulators need to adapt and, accept that in some sense AI is going to be involved. It's just not going to disappear. So they need to adjust, not us.
Now let's talk about that a second. So recently we've seen in the news that ChatGPT might be spitting out some answers that are actually incorrect.
Yes.
And it's happening more frequently. There was a famous case or infamous case a couple of years ago where a lawyer used ChatGPT to write a brief, and he cited cases that didn't exist, and he got fired. Is there too much misinformation out there? Is there too much bad data that we could end up?
I don't think so. And this example of the lawyer, we have to go over this example of the lawyer, because poor lawyer, this was long ago, and it was the beginning of Gen AI. And less there will be this kind of incorrect information, not only because the data is better, but because we actually check the data with a lot of actually rules, knowledge. Is the answer of this type, of this form? Is this number the same? So it cannot invent numbers, because if it says 50 billions in the document, it has to be 50 billion. It cannot be 43, it cannot be 44. So equality. So we are entering the world in which we actually have to develop techniques to guarantee that the information is correct. And more we are doing that, and eventually less and less the information will be incorrect, or we'll be able to identify the information incorrect. And I tell you, all of us had spam, much more spam in the 90s than we have now. And there are these spam filters. So think about the same thing, hallucination filters, that will be more and more available. And hopefully we can trust more these AI machines. You understand? Yeah.
And as we build trust, most of our friends here are employees of banks. How are banks using data and AI to create efficiencies
Okay,
within their
so
business.
I want here to make the case for something that people may not be aware of. So we all love data, right? So we're obsessed with data. Data, data, data. Then we are obsessed with cleaning data, making data beautiful. It's like all of that. But in addition to data, the raw data, the transaction data, the profile of the client's data, you have to understand something. There are policies, there are rules, there is knowledge. So there is data, and there are a lot of processes. There is a lot of like understanding of the process. What is the knowledge that rules the processes? That you first do this, then you do that. That's also part of what AI can help with. So these robotics, these robotics automation, what is it called here? RPA, robotics processes automation that you have had, now can be done actually without having to have someone program. You can go from descriptions of the processes to automated through generative AI. So now you actually can automate a lot of things, not just analyze the data, but also automate processes. So you have to grow your heart. You have to open your heart not only to data, raw data, beautiful like data, but also knowledge and steps and AI, these agents, this new concept of agents, will indeed look at the data, apply the rules, and eventually run them. So you have to, this new decade is the decade of agents that includes also knowledge, not just data, but also knowledge. And so that's something that, how do you say, unless you embrace, you are going to stay in the data world, but that's like fast. The data is there, but these agents are able to, it's not going to be a human that needs to visualize, it's some AI system that needs to look at the data and eventually think about what to do and do. So this is the concept of agent, is this ability to do this chained kind of interaction. Now, one final thing about agents, people think, oh, agents. Agents is actually something that requires us to be very disciplined in our thinking. When you, as a business person, think about an agent, you have to start from the end. And you have to start like this. Which actions are these agents going to do? Maybe read email, maybe send email, maybe talk with the client, maybe read the document. So you come up with skills of these agents, the actions. And then you go back and says, in order to select this action, what does it need to extract from the data? So it's a very kind of like opportunistic thinking, not like, oh, I have all this data. No. What do you need the data for? And you backtrack from the actions to eventually how do you select, and to the data it's purposeful. You don't care about all the data. You only care about the data that's going to be needed for this selection of actions and for the action to take place. So you don't need to read all the email. You only need to read the email from Michael. That's it. And Mike comes up, and that's the only thing you care. You understand? So it's this AI, what it leads us is to discipline our thinking, because eventually the machine needs to be able to do this, and the machine is not really creative. It follows a procedure. Understand? Anyway.
We'll move to some questions from the audience. I see a few coming through. Specifically with regards to payments and transaction banking, how is AI being used to create efficiencies and, more importantly, fight fraud?
Yeah, so payment is an area where AI can help a lot in multiple ways. One of the ways that I like the best is to actually alert either the customers or the bank that something is going wrong with these payments. For example, some company withdrawing money from this bank to another, you might get an alert. Oh, maybe they're moving their business to someone else and so forth. So you know before, because you are analyzing the payments. You can also do a service to the customers and say, if you look at your payments and you see the balance might go, it's coming down, you might alert, you be careful because you have to pay your rent and it's coming down. So so this is the function of alerting, not just making it be the route being fast, and the effectiveness is alerting. AI can be in the background analyzing all these data and making these beautiful kind of like forecasts, alerts that we don't do manually and that much. For fraud, there is something that I have to tell you. Fraud has nothing to do with the problem. It has to do with the people. The people invent, they're all criminals. I mean, whatever is criminal will be criminal. And it's a nightmare to handle these humans who invent ways to create fraud. I mean, there is nothing in the money, there is nothing in the transaction. It's these humans that come up with ways. It's once that we found a company that was called Small with 3 L's instead of 2, who was like completely confusing everyone, asking for money. It's completely fraud. And who could define those 3 L's? It was like in some emails, constant. It's just crazy. So you have to understand one thing. The only thing that we need to do with fraud is we have to have AI, look at the data, and hopefully predict fraud. But you need to understand that this is game theory. The more we predict, the more these humans are going to find other ways to do fraud. So we just have to be like ahead and trying to do this. We cannot have AI anticipate new fraud that will come. We can't. We just, unfortunately or fortunately, AI is not like these, doesn't have this bad intention of stealing, and so there is no such thing. But the detection can be much better than we used to have. The generation of the reports saying why this thing was found fraud can be much better, consistent, robust, and scale. The 3 things. It can do it in all the transactions, the scale. It doesn't matter whether it's 1,000, whether it's 1,000,000. AI beautifully will do it in all. Robustly means it doesn't get tired. It does it like every time is available. And then consistently, it's consistent. And then there is one 4th thing that you know, in our fraud algorithms, we have a lot of like thresholds that we set by hand. You know, if it's more than $5,000 and these and that, all these thresholds, all these kind of like commitments we make can be adjusted by AI dynamically. So if many 5,000 things were not like really like fraud, you may want to move it down to 4,000, and AI can do that. So robustness, consistency, scale, and adjustment of whatever thresholds we are using, AI can help with those 4 things. And so you just need to make the data available to AI, give a little feedback on the things that were actually fraud. So you need to let AI know the things that are fraud. And eventually the AI will learn much better how to do this. And it will become better over time if we give more examples. Okay?
Manuela, when banks start using AI more frequently, it's not as simple. You set it up, you plug and play. You really have to retrain your staff to work in this new AI technology environment. What's been the biggest challenge in retraining staff?
This is a very good question also. You know,
somebody else asked it.
Oh, they asked it.
I wish you didn't mind.
But I tell you one thing, in our industry, there are these technologists here, you know, like AI. I know AI for many, many years. I did my thesis in the 90s. It doesn't matter. And then there is the business people. Nothing goes through without a business champion. There has to be someone who really believes that things can change in order for things to change. Otherwise, everything stays the same. There is no way that I can say, yeah, give me the data, and someone in the business. So my advice is the following. So if you talk with someone who is very attached to the way it's done now, and the way that you interact with this person is like, you know, these people always say, it's so hard, the AI will never be able to do it, whatever. You know what? Leave them alone. Try to talk with someone else. Until you find that magic person who's actually going to listen, who's going to try, who gets excited, who shares the data, who is like following up, because it's not happening without a business champion. So it's all in the business hands, but you have to have people. The only thing is that get people excited. Assign them one day, homework number 4, in which they do nothing else Then during the day, check all the AI they use outside of the office. The Waze, the Uber, the Amazon, the Open Table, you name it. The Etsy, so they have to understand that they're surrounded by artificial intelligence, but systems that manipulate information, make it available with you. Did you ever realize Open Table? How does that thing know all the restaurants of the world? I mean, isn't that weird? Where does that come from? How does it know that it cannot have a table for 4 at 6 p.m. in some random restaurant? I'm always in awe. How does this thing know? Well, that's all the AI behind. The representation of all the restaurants, the being able to ask real time. Well, you know, that's what you assign as a homework to your people. Leave one day analyzing all these AI that you use, and then start thinking about in your business, what can you do? What can you do? And with Gen AI, there is no excuse. It's available. The documents, the analysis of documents, the building like text, the building emails, I'm not talking about the numbers or the people, but all the text part, you can do the PowerPoint generation, you name it. You have to assign these as people need to get excited about this. The same way that you are excited about using Open Table. At least I am. I never call the restaurant to make sure, are you sure there is no table at 6? You don't do it, you just take it. And you try a different restaurant. So, but see, what about that in our business? Okay, is there any other question?
Yeah, so someone asked, for some of the smaller banks here, the regional banks, that may not have the same resources as the tier 1 banks, do you recommend them trying to build something in-house or going to a third-party AI provider?
Well, okay, so if you go, we also, even in the big banks, we go many times to third-party providers because they bring the consistency, they bring the scale, they bring the maintenance, and those are all desired properties that sometimes in-house you don't have it all. So you need to do this. The only thing I tell you is that don't get fooled by these people, these vendors. They all are interested in your money. They all overstate what they do. They say, oh, you do everything. And you say, really? Can you do all of that? I mean, sometimes I am in these conversations with vendors and I'm looking and saying, wow, these people are like, what are they doing? Science fiction, really? They kind of like, and then when we sign the contract, that comes through. They cannot do anything. Or I'm just saying, I'm sorry that I know vendors. I don't know how many vendors.
We might have a few in here.
But so in order to protect yourself from there and still use them, it's good to build some internal knowledge about this. So it doesn't mean that you develop everything, but at least you have to have a way of understanding more about what these people are trying to get your money on. Do you understand? And then this is important, is to build a little kind of knowledge, kind of understand, or have some people that help with that. The second thing that's very nice for small banks to get this understanding and all of this, get summer interns. These PhD students that are here spread through all these universities are precious resources, because they come, they know all this theory stuff, all this, but they have an open mind, they understand your problems, and eventually they even genuinely offer solutions or kind of criticize other solutions, and it costs you what? A summer, 4 months in the summer. And you establish relationships with them. They might be your future hires. They might say, oh, this bank has such interesting problems and so forth. They're ambassadors for the things you need. So summer interns and get some internal knowledge so that you are not fooled by all these vendors. Okay? Yeah.
For those of us in the business, you mentioned that you still need a human in the loop.
Yeah.
How do we remain relevant? What skills do we need to develop so that we are not obsolete?
Okay, so these humans don't need to have any special skills except not denying that AI exists. So you don't have to learn transformers. You don't have to learn backpropagation algorithms. You don't have to learn statistics, nothing. What you have to know is what is available. So try as much as possible to use the products. I have no clue how an airplane flies. I know some Bernoulli effect or something, but I have no clue. Do I get on an airplane or do I take a horse that I might understand better how it works? So you cannot deny, Do you understand how a washing machine washes your clothes by going around? I don't. I used to wash like this, and now the thing goes around. Do you wash clothes in this washing machine? For sure. But I'm trying to say, the important thing, the only skill you have to have is that you cannot deny for eternity that this thing is available. And you have to make an effort to try to use this thing. It's like, I'm telling you, it's like the refrigerator or the washing or whatever. It's use. And if you don't want to use, or if you don't care about technology, that's fine. But find someone who cares. And then what you need to do is, and the final thing is like this, I tell you, you need to think big. As an industry, you need to think big. You cannot accept that asking for a loan takes 3 weeks, that the payment cannot go instantaneously, that whatever. You cannot accept the things that are like pain points for our clients. You need to try to resolve them and think big. I wish that this happened. For example, one of the things that I wish that it would happen, can you imagine this computer, this AI, sees all our clients, sees all our transactions, all our payments. Imagine if this thing would constantly anticipate what our customers need. For example, there was at JP Morgan, there's Gordon Smith, it doesn't matter, and he left. I love this man, and he actually told one thing, Manuela, what if AI anticipates all the loan requests we are going to have, so that when the client comes in, we give the loan in 1 minute, with all the due diligence, with all the KYC, with everything. Can you believe? That's what eventually you have to dream of. You have to dream big. There is no, don't start reading any papers on AI. That's their problem, not your problem. You are a business person. And so what you have to become is even a better business person and think big, or at least have someone in your team think big. And it might look like it's not possible. How can we anticipate what everybody can do? It's not possible with humans, but it's possible with AI. These machines are amazing at analyzing things and coming up with like patterns that the data can reveal, and the knowledge and the policies. For example, one final thing is like this. Do not accept these or a dream that, I don't know about you, but we are surrounded by documents. I mean, how many documents we get? Like policies, prospectus, annual reports. I mean, it's a nightmare. And then every time we get new ones, dream big that they would come already with everything highlighted that's different from the previous one. Isn't that be nice if this would be like saying, these are the differences, these are, AI can do that. AI can help these comparison of documents, these finding the changes, these understand, all of these things, so don't forget, it's pain points, you have to identify them. Don't forget about AI, but now you have a chance of identifying pain points. You have to identify wishes. I wish that it would take only 1 hour to do this. And the needs, the things you need. I need these payments to be well analyzed. I need fraud to be well detected. You cannot wish that there is no fraud. That's like a dream. But for that, you would have to take care of humankind, not of the AI. So don't wish that there is no fraud, but wish that the fraud would be much better detected. Okay? So pain points, wishes, and needs. And there you go, and that's where your AI will help.
Perfect. We've got 2 minutes left. We're going to go back to something we discussed earlier and answer one of the questions here. So you mentioned that JP Morgan has an internal GPT. They've got guardrails, firewalls to protect the information. Someone asked the question, they said, my firm doesn't permit the use of ChatGPT for business purposes. How fast will banks fall behind if they don't allow their staff to utilize the benefits of ChatGPT?
Down the cliff. They will fall very fast, very fast, very fast. Unless you are a bank that has 5 customers and you go for dinner with the 5 customers every night, you are in trouble. You are in trouble. So you need to embrace that the people who work in your environment have access to these Gen AI tools. Otherwise, how are you going to hire anybody? If you are going to say, oh yeah, you come to work with me, and guess what? You have to do all your PowerPoints by hand. You have to generate all the emails by hand. You have to read all these documents by yourself. Who's going to go there next door says, you know what? Here you can use ChatGPT for a lot of these options. How are you going to hire anyone? I'm telling you. So you have to understand that, and the thing is like this, it is possible to create guardrailed kind of like access to this Gen AI. It's not impossible. It might take some thinking. Maybe a company can do that for you. Maybe someone can do that for you, but it's just that it's not going to be viable to go without. And I'm saying Gen AI now, and as any technology that will come, you cannot fall behind. The final thing I'll tell you is like this. However, we should all not run our business as a function of the new technology. You should run your business as it is and jump into the opportunity of use the new technology when it comes. Because when they might be quantum, when they might be like, phone, whatever it is, but you have to be in control of the business, and then jump out. But you cannot deny that that thing is available. It's like the airplanes. You cannot be ignoring that you can go across the ocean without being on a boat. You cannot. So always think about your life and make the parallel to now the new technologies in your business. And the most important thing is also to have fun doing this. It's not to be like, oh my gosh, the burden AI is here. No, oh my gosh, AI is here. It's amazing. If you don't have that attitude, it's going to be painful, I tell you.
Manuela, always a pleasure. Thank you very much.